I used to think testing someone's love was crazy, like who does that? Well, I'm about to tell you how I turned into exactly that kind of person. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I regret it or if he just proved my point. I'm Adeline, 35, and this is how I managed to blow up the best relationship I've ever had, just to see if it was actually real. You know how they say working in certain jobs changes how you see the world? Try being a paralegal handling divorces every single day. I'm drowning in paperwork from people who swore they'd be together forever only to end up fighting over who gets the coffee maker. That's my life, watching love stories turn into war stories. It kind of messes with your head after a while. That's probably why I started overthinking everything with Rowan. God, Rowan. He was different from the start. We met at my cousin Seraphina's barbecue 3 years ago. He was this tall, quiet guy manning the grill, making everyone laugh with these super dry comments about how he was professionally qualified to burn meat because of all his truck stop meals. He's a long-haul trucker, which I actually found sexy at first. Something about a man who could handle being alone with his thoughts for days at a time, you know? Our first date was him teaching me how to play pool at this dive bar, and I remember thinking how gentle his hands were for someone who drives this massive truck. We moved in together 6 months ago, this little two-bedroom apartment that feels huge when he's on the road. The first 2 years were like something out of a movie. He'd send me pictures from different states, bring back silly souvenirs, and our reunions were always intense, like 3 days apart felt like 3 months. But then things started feeling off. Maybe it was me being paranoid from all these divorce cases at work, but I noticed he was getting texts at weird hours. He said they were from his dispatcher, Mavis. Yeah, Mavis with 20 years of experience and grandkids, but my mind still went places. The road can be lonely, right? And 3, 4 days apart every week is a lot of lonely. Then last month, I was doing laundry and found this receipt from Kay Jewelers in his jacket pocket. My heart stopped, like actually stopped. Instead of being excited, I felt like I was going to throw up. Because here's the thing, half the divorces I process start with, "We got engaged because it seemed like the next step." And yeah, maybe I'm being dramatic, but when you see marriages explode every day, it does something to you. I called my best friend Tatum that night. She's going through divorce number 3, and I know what you're thinking. Maybe not the best person to get relationship advice from, but she gets it, you know? She told me something that stuck. If he really loves you, he'll fight for you. And you need to know that before you say yes to forever. It made sense in that moment. Rowan's always been so steady, which I loved, but suddenly I was questioning everything. When he's home, he's present, but when he's gone, I started wondering if that steadiness was just him being comfortable, taking me for granted. The more I thought about it, the more I convinced myself I needed to know for sure. So there I was, scrolling through his Facebook while he was somewhere in Ohio, looking at comments from random women on his posts, mostly other trucker wives being friendly, but my mind turned everything suspicious. I started noticing how he'd sometimes miss our video call times because he was stuck at a way station or had bad service. 3 years in, and I was suddenly seeing everything through these new, paranoid eyes. Tatum suggested I test him. "Just pull back a little," she said. "See if he notices. See if he fights for us." It sounded crazy at first, but then she said something that really got to me. "Adeline, you spend all day processing divorces that started because people didn't ask the hard questions before saying, 'I do.' Do you want to be another file on your own desk?" That's when I decided to do it. Just a little test, I told myself. Nothing dramatic, just enough to see what he'd do if he thought he was losing me. I mean, if he really loved me, he'd fight through anything, right? That's what real love does. At least, that's what I told myself when I started this whole mess. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs in my own behavior, but when you're so focused on testing someone else's love, you don't realize you're the one failing the biggest test of all: trusting your own relationship. I was about to learn that lesson the hard way, and honestly, I'm still not sure who failed who in the end. It started small. When Rowan called during his breaks, I'd let it go to voicemail. Sometimes, just sometimes. Then I'd text back, like, "Sorry, crazy day at work, catch you later." I could tell it bothered him because he'd always send these little sad face emojis, which, by the way, was so not like him. But he didn't blow up my phone or demand to know what I was doing. He just accepted it. So I stepped it up. Started posting these thirst trap gym selfies. Nothing trashy, but you know the kind. Sports bra, high-waisted leggings, that just worked out glow. I made sure to tag Julian, my gym buddy, in some of them. Rowan used to joke about Julian being gay, but suddenly he stopped mentioning him altogether. I wanted him to say something, to get jealous, to show he cared. Instead, he just started taking longer routes. The money's better on the West Coast runs, he'd say, which meant instead of being gone 3 or 4 days, he'd be gone for 6 or 7. And the thing is, I couldn't even call him out on it because technically he was just working, making more money, being responsible. It made me so mad how reasonable he was being. Tatum told me I wasn't pushing hard enough. Men need to feel like they're losing something to realize what they have, she said. So when Rowan was home, I picked fights about stupid things. The way he left his boots by the door, how he always wanted to watch documentaries instead of going out. I even started in on his job. Must be nice to just check out of real life for days at a time, I said during one fight. Some of us have to deal with actual responsibilities. The look he gave me, I'll never forget it, like I'd slapped him. Actual responsibilities? He said, so quiet it scared me. Like what, Adeline? The apartment I pay most of the rent for while I'm not even here? The car payments I help with so you can drive to your real job? That turned into our first real screaming match. I told him he was never around. He said I'd changed. I accused him of not caring enough to be home more. It ended with him grabbing his keys at midnight, saying he'd sleep in his truck. When he left, I posted this super petty Instagram story about how sometimes people would rather run than deal with reality, with some sad song playing in the background. He saw it. I know he did, because his sister Alara liked it and then immediately unliked it. But Rowan? Radio silence. He just took another long-haul route, 7 days this time. All he sent was a text. Taking the Seattle run. Could use the space anyway. That's when I really lost it. While he was gone, I went through all his drawers, his emails, his old phones, looking for something, anything, to justify how I was acting. Instead, all I found were old birthday cards I'd given him, this stupid air freshener I bought him as a joke that he'd kept, and about 1,000,000 pictures of us on his iPad from when things were good. But you know what's messed up? Instead of that making me feel better, it made me more determined to get a reaction. Because if he loved me this much, if he'd kept all these little things, why wasn't he fighting harder to keep me? Why was he just letting me push him away? So I did something I'm not proud of. When I knew he was at a truck stop for his mandatory rest period, I posted this super shady relationship status update. Sometimes what looks like forever is just a pit stop. Then I blocked him on everything. Facebook, Instagram, even his number. Tatum said it was genius. He'll be blowing up your work phone by morning, she promised. Turns out, we were both wrong about how Rowan would react. So wrong. You want to know what he did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. For 3 whole days, I was checking my work phone like a crazy person. I even called a few truck stops along his usual route, pretending to be his dispatcher with an urgent message. But Rowan had just gone dark. The only way I even knew he was alive was his trucking app still showing his location moving steadily across the country. That's when I really went off the deep end. I started messaging every female friend on his Facebook. Hey, just checking in on Rowan. He's been so busy lately. Like some psycho girlfriend. Most of them left me on read. A few actually replied with stuff like, maybe ask Rowan? But one, this truck stop waitress in Nebraska, she sent back, oh honey, is everything okay? Rowan seemed really down last time he came through. Seemed really down? What did she mean by that? How often did he come through? Why was he talking to some random waitress about his feelings? I spent 3 hours stalking her profile until I convinced myself they were having an affair, even though her profile picture was her and her wife at their wedding. One night after too many wines with Tatum, I lost it. Rowan was supposed to be home the next day, and I couldn't handle the silence anymore. I took all his favorite flannels, the ones he actually wore, not the ones sitting in his truck, and threw them off our 3rd-floor balcony. Some teenager recorded the whole thing, me screaming about trust and commitment while launching clothing into the parking lot. It went minorly viral in our apartment complex's Facebook group. So embarrassing. But you know what's worse? When Rowan finally came home and saw the video, he didn't even yell. He just looked at me like, like I was one of the crazy X-stories truckers tell each other at diners. Then he calmly packed a bigger bag than usual, called his dispatcher right in front of me, and took an extended cross-country route. 6 weeks minimum, he said, like he was discussing the weather. Tatum said this was my moment, that he was obviously trying to make me miss him, playing his own game. She told me to double down. Show up at his favorite spots, she said. Make him realize you won't be ignored. So I started hanging out at this truck stop diner he always hits before long hauls. 3 times I coincidentally ran into him there. The first time, he just turned around and left. The second time, we got into this huge fight in the parking lot. I was crying, saying he was pushing me away, that he never fought for us. He just looked at me and said, "Adeline, you're literally stalking me at truck stops. This isn't love anymore, it's a hostage situation." The third time, the third time was the worst. I showed up with this whole speech prepared about how he was emotionally unavailable, how his job was ruining us, how if he really loved me, he'd find local routes instead. I found him having coffee with that Nebraska waitress. Turns out, she and her wife had transferred to our local truck stop and they were all friends now. I caused such a scene, accusing them of having an affair right there in front of everyone. The waitress's wife literally had to step between us while I was screaming about how they were making a fool of me. Rowan just sat there, recording the whole thing on his phone. For his protection, he said. Like I was some kind of threat. That night after the diner debacle, I got this text from him. "I never knew you could become a stranger so fast to someone you used to love. I'll be home next week for my things." And just like that, my test was about to give me results I never wanted. I spent the next week in this weird panic mode. One minute I was texting him these long paragraphs about how he was throwing away 3 years over nothing. The next, I was leaving voicemails calling him a coward for not fighting for us. Tatum finally backed off when I started talking about showing up at his mom's house. Even she thought that was too far. The day Rowan came to get his things, I tried everything. I wore his favorite dress, I made his favorite coffee. I even started crying as soon as he walked in, telling him we could work through this. He just kept looking at his phone, and I realized he was recording audio again. "Are you serious right now?" I snapped. "You're really going to record me in my own home?" "Our home," he corrected, so calm it made me crazy. "The home where you threw my clothes off the balcony? The home where you've been playing mind games for months?" "Yeah, I'm recording because I don't even know who you are anymore." That's when I broke, like completely lost it. "I was testing you," I screamed. "I wanted to see if you'd fight for me. If you really loved me, you would have fought harder." The look on his face, I'll never forget it. Not anger, not sadness, just disappointment. "Testing me?" he said quietly. "Adeline, love isn't a pop quiz. You don't get to play games with someone's heart just to see what happens." Then he pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. That receipt from Kay Jewelers? It was for a custom ring. He'd been working extra routes to pay for it. All those weird texts from his dispatcher? They were about coordinating a surprise delivery where he was going to propose on his truck's flatbed, surrounded by fairy lights and photos from our relationship. "I had this whole plan," he said, scrolling through the pictures. "Was going to park at that overlook where we had our first picnic. Mavis helped me set everything up. But then you started acting strange, pushing me away. I kept thinking, just get through this rough patch. Then you started showing up at truck stops, causing scenes, accusing me of cheating. I felt like I was going to throw up. 'The ring,' I whispered. 'Do you still?' 'Returned it last month,' he cut me off. 'Right after you threw my clothes off the balcony. Used the money to put a deposit on a new place. Seems kind of poetic now.' I tried to explain about the divorce cases at work, about my fears, about Tatum's advice, but the more I talked, the more I realized how insane it all sounded. I'd literally destroyed my relationship just to test its strength. "You know what the saddest part is?" Rowan said, packing the last of his pictures into a box. "I would have fought for you against anything. Real money problems, family issues, whatever life threw at us. But how do you fight against someone who's actively trying to break you? That's not love, Adeline. That's abuse." That word, abuse, it hit me like a truck. I wanted to argue, to say he was being dramatic, but then I thought about everything I'd done. The stalking, the public scenes, the emotional manipulation. If he had done all that to me, what would I have called it? I'll send movers for the big furniture next week, he said, heading for the door. Don't contact me again unless it's through my lawyer about the lease. As he walked out, I had this sudden flashback to that day at the barbecue, him laughing at the grill, making everyone feel at ease. I'd spent months testing if he would fight for me, and in the process, I'd given him every reason to walk away. The next few weeks were a mess. I'm not proud of how I handled it. I showed up at his mom's church one Sunday, thinking I could explain my side to her. She walked right past me, just said, "Adeline, honey, get help." Our mutual friends started avoiding me. Even Tatum ghosted after I drunk called her at 3 a.m., sobbing about how she'd encouraged all this. I tried everything to get him back. Sent these long email apologies about how I'd gotten therapy, I hadn't. How I'd changed, I hadn't. How I finally understood what real love was, I didn't. When he didn't respond, I started sending his favorite snacks and drinks to random truck stops along his route with little notes. The truck stop staff eventually told me to stop because he'd just leave them untouched. The worst part? Our apartment complex's Facebook group had turned my balcony meltdown into this whole thing. People would whisper when I got my mail. Some college kids even recreated the flannel toss for their TikTok. I became that crazy ex everyone loves to gossip about. I lost it when I saw his truck at our old favorite diner and realized he'd changed his entire route just to avoid any chance of running into me. That's when I did something really stupid. I tried to join this local trucker wives support group on Facebook, thinking maybe I could get updates about him. They rejected me 3 times before someone finally messaged to tell me they all knew who I was. Rowan's sister, Alara, who used to be like my own sister, blocked me after I kept asking about him. But before she did, she sent this message that really messed me up. He didn't test his love, Adeline. He tested his self-respect. And thank God he passed. I started seeing his truck less and less at the local stops. Through the grapevine, aka stalking his friends' social media, I found out he'd switched to a different regional route. Someone said he was making less money but seemed happier. That hurt more than anything, the idea that he'd rather make less money than risk running into me. The moving truck came for the furniture exactly when he said it would. Professional, efficient, no drama. Just like him, I tried to leave a letter in one of the drawers. But the movers had strict instructions not to take any personal items or messages. Even in this, he was one step ahead of me, protecting himself. My friend Fiona, the only one who still talks to me from our old group, said what everyone was thinking. "You know what's crazy?" she said over coffee. "You were so worried about him not fighting for you that you didn't realize you were the one throwing away everything worth fighting for." She showed me pictures from a mutual friend's wedding. Rowan was there with some woman, nothing romantic, just talking and laughing in the background of a group shot. But he looked lighter, like the Rowan I first met at that barbecue, before I turned his love into some twisted test he never signed up for. That was 6 months ago. I'd love to tell you I've grown and learned this huge life lesson, but honestly, some days I still catch myself thinking he should have tried harder. Like, yeah, I messed up with the whole testing thing, but wasn't walking away so easily just proving my point? My therapist? Yeah, I actually got one after the truck stop restraining order scare. Says I'm still trying to make myself the victim. She's probably right. Last week, I found out through Fiona that Rowan's dating a nurse now, someone who works crazy shifts and actually understands his schedule. Apparently, they met when he was getting his DOT physical renewed, and she didn't even know about the whole balcony incident until someone tried to warn her about him dating that crazy ex. You know what she did? Laughed it off and said, "Everybody has a past." Like my entire meltdown was just some quirky story. That got to me more than anything. The idea that I'm just a chapter in his past now, something to laugh about over dinner. I went on a date last night, actually. Nice guy, works in IT. When he asked about my last relationship, I heard myself saying, "Oh, my ex couldn't handle a strong woman who knew her worth." Even as the words left my mouth, I knew how ridiculous they sounded. Rowan handled everything, my tests, my accusations, my public meltdowns with more grace than I deserved. He just refused to play the game. The thing about testing someone's love, you never actually get the answer you're looking for. Either they fail and prove your fears right, or they walk away and prove them right a different way. At least, that's how my mind still tries to spin it. Deep down, though, in those moments when I'm being really honest with myself, I know the truth. I didn't lose Rowan because he wouldn't fight for me. I lost him because I turned our relationship into a battlefield and then got mad when he wouldn't play war games with me. He was building us a future, while I was setting up landmines to test his commitment. That K jeweler's receipt still sits in my drawer. I kept it, even though I know I should throw it away. Sometimes on bad nights, I take it out and think about that truck stop proposal that never happened. All those extra routes he drove to afford it while I was sitting at home convincing myself he was pulling away. Fiona says I should write him a real apology. Not for me, not to get him back, but just to acknowledge the hurt I caused. Maybe someday I will. But right now, watching him build a new life through the glimpses I get on social media. Okay, fine, through my fake account. I know he's better off without my kind of love. The kind that demands proof but offers none in return. So here I am, sitting in our Talk My apartment, surrounded by dating app notifications and self-help books about relationships. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent months testing if a good man would fight to keep me, only to become someone not worth fighting for. They say, love shouldn't be a test. I learned it shouldn't be a war either. Too bad I figured that out after I'd already burned everything to the ground in my quest to find out if it was fireproof.